Today on Lynn's Warriors, we bring you a story that no parent should ever have to tell, and yet many are living. This is not about headlines. This is not about theory. This is about a mother, about a daughter, and a system that failed both of them. Joining us is Schott from Colorado, a survivor parent whose daughter Annalee's story is now part of a much larger reckoning taking place across our great country. Lori has not only lived this unimaginable loss, she has taken action. She's a warrior. From the courtroom to Los Angeles, in Los Angeles during the recent meta trial, she was at the forefront of all of this. We're going to get into that. Recently at the Colorado State Capitol for bill signing, she is turning this grief into purpose. Join us. We want you to listen and learn, and we want you to act. And I want everyone to follow Lori and all of the parents at parentsrise.org. We'll have all of Lori's information in the body of this video. I want to get right to it because Lori's voice is so important. So sit back and welcome Lori to the Warriors.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you.
Lori, I want to start with something. You have really, when I say at the forefront, been a parent. I really want to ask you how you take care of yourself, because I don't know how many interviews you have given in the last few weeks, and you're relaying your story and talking about your beautiful daughter over and over again. You have people in your face, and you're in courtrooms, and you're flying back and forth and living out of suitcases and all of that. How do you take care of Lori?
I think my family takes care of Lori. I think the organizations and the other parents that are fighting this battle take care of Lori because we take care of each other. It's been a lot for a little rural mom that's out here on the Eastern Plains of Colorado to be advocating and doing her best to make a difference in memory of her daughter. But it's like, it shows that anybody can be in the forefront for change. So I'm thankful and I'm blessed beyond words. And for organizations like yours, Lynn, and checking in on us when we're there means more to us parents than you know.
Oh, thank you for saying that, but I can't do my job without all of you. You gave me in Florida recently. We were together.
Yes.
This Annalee, this courage coin.
Mm-hmm.
Lori, every day I put it between my hands like this to give. I'm not kidding. In the morning to give me strength and say, this is why I can do what I can do. It empowers me to keep working harder, fighting harder. Would you like to bring Annalee to life for us a little bit? Tell us about her.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I love to talk about my little girl. It always includes some tears, Lynn. As you know, I'm the crier of everything, but it's just because the love is that deep. Annalise, she was a beautiful little country girl. She was my no problem child. She was I'm going to get outside and get dirty and do chores and be responsible for my livestock. And she had such a kind heart. And, she was a cowgirl. She liked to rope with her brothers and be in rodeo events. And a lot of the cowboys and the older folks in her group loved to, participate in rodeos with her because they did call her an old soul. But she had such a tender heart, and she was a child of God, and she read her Bible, and she could recite verses better than anybody I knew. Wow. And she didn't deserve what happened to her, period.
Lori, I'm always very cautious with parents and survivors I work with. It's your story to tell, right? Yeah. Do you want to tell us what happened to her? Do you want to explain what actually I really want our warriors listening to understand. I used to say, Lori, that these things happen to vulnerable kids and vulnerable families. And now I say, we're all facing it. Everybody's facing it. You can come from the best home and you can direct your kids and have these conversations, and things still happen. So we all have to wake up. So if you want to share, this is up to you, whatever you want to share.
Sure. Now, and I totally agree. I always thought that we lived in rural Colorado, that we were in the most protected place we could be to raise our kids. We were always about the rural lifestyle. But, Annalee, she went to a small Christian school from K to 8th grade. We gave her a phone at the age of 13. We lived on a farm, and is the end of a dirt road. And we wanted a way to stay in touch with her. And, we thought we were doing the right things with what we had and what we knew. And Annalise started to download platforms under, she had to ask us first when she got that phone that she wanted to download first was Facebook. And that was about the age of 14. And I thought back then, Facebook, what a great thing. She could stay in contact with her rodeo friends across the country and our family that lives across the country. And when I look back at it now, it was so innocent back then. But as she continued to grow, she asked for Snapchat and she asked for Instagram. And, I'd look at the Apple store and it said 13 and above. So I really, I was one of those parents that I guess my two older children always said I was the strictest parent, but we had rules. My Anna didn't have a TV in her bedroom. She wasn't allowed to play PlayStation unless it was games that were PlayStation 13, like Madden football. We were that oversight. But as she continued to grow and get into her high school years, the phone continued to be a point of contention with us. And I didn't realize, I was asking her to put the phone on the counter at night and, she could have it in the morning, and I was monitoring what she was looking at. And, it seemed to snowball so fast in that time that what I thought was her just growing up as a teenage girl and being a little resilient to her mother was, the impacts of the social media platforms. We did pursue counseling with Anna because I thought being a girl in a small rural area, I wanted her to have all resources, and I believed in mental health. And, we even took her and found her to have a counselor 2 hours away. It was 2 hours up and 2 hours back for us. I mean, that was our commitment to parenting because I knew teenage girl years were tough. I went through that. And I wanted her to have that outlet. And what I thought we were doing was everything right, checking her phone, having her ask permission for downloading platforms became a whole different world after we lost her, Lynn. And we discovered things that I hope every parent will pay attention to on this podcast were things that we missed. And with that being said, our daughter, continued to grow into her junior year. And in the spring of her junior year is when COVID hit. And that's when I kind of was like, Jesus, take the wheel. She's a junior. She's going to be a senior. The restrictions on the phone became lax because she needed it for school. She needed it for play practice. She needed it for everything. And that's when I kind of let my guard down, and we lost her 9 months later to suicide. And yeah, what we found out after she died and after going through the hell of 9 months, the world opened up to us to piece together what happened to this little girl. And that was when Frances Hogan came forward with the white paper, from Facebook, whistleblower papers. And my sons encouraged me to read all the documents because they felt that had something to do with why Annalee took her life. And with that being said, I found the courage to go forward and look on her social media, gain access to her social media platforms. And I watched Social Dilemma, and the pieces of the puzzle, Lynn, just started to come together. Because here's a little girl, Lynn, I don't tell very many people. She left us a note that day and said, I love my family. Don't be sad for me. It's not you. Sorry. She did. She left a note that day and she said, don't be sad for me. It's not you. It's me. I have no future. And so when you sit there with a note and a child that took her life, you're like, why? I mean, we were a strong Christian family. We traveled together on rodeo. She was in 4-H. She was like that little country girl that everybody would see on a postcard. What would push her to that point? And 2 days after she died, tying it into the story is she wrote journals. So we believed in journaling, and she had stacks of journals in her room. And I went down there, and my husband Avery followed me, and I started to look at them. And she just talked about being a girl, but she also talked about struggles as being a teenager. And it didn't go very far because my husband came in and he said, burn them. I want you to burn them all. It won't bring her back. I don't want them around. And I had this voice inside of me that said, don't do it. And right after she died, I put him in her bottom drawer. And thank goodness I did, because, 2 years later was when I went down there and I started putting the pieces of the puzzle together, with the note she left, with the whistleblower papers, with Social Dilemma, with gaining access into her platforms, pulled those out and that was the key piece about how these social media platforms did impact my little girl. So.
Oh, Lori, I'm just, when I say I'm sorry, it just doesn't seem like I'm offering you enough. Or any of the parents. What was your next step? You're out in rural Colorado, and then you're going through all of this horror, and then it's a couple of years later, and then you finally to yourself come up with maybe some sort of answer. Not that there's really an answer here, but you come up with some connecting dots. Like, what did you do next?
There was a morning that I was on Facebook myself, and an image came forward to me, and didn't realize it, and I started to realize it's like these algorithm content that's being pushed to me were the same thing that we're fighting against. And it was about depression and anxiety. It was a picture of a little girl looking over a cliff with water underneath it, and it was all this depressing content being sent to me on my feed. And I looked at that and I'm like, my gosh, Anna drew that exact same picture in her journal. And that is the day that I said, this has to stop. That is the day my heart went to my feet. And I got the courage to make a call to the Social Media Victims Law Center. I had talked to them earlier and said, this is what I found. And this is what I'm seeing. And this is what it was in her social media. And I said, I just want your thoughts on it. And it's probably the best call I ever made, because the fact was the 2-year statute of limitation gave us 3 days to file her lawsuit.
Wow.
And it was filed on her 2-year anniversary date. So I was like, God had a plan for me to make that phone call, because my husband wouldn't even talk to me, Lynn, about it. He was so broken. He's so broken because of losing his little girl. And I did make that call and connection with them. And that's when I decided, like you said, I needed to become a warrior, because I have facts here that a lot of parents didn't. There was so much unknown about these social media platforms. And if Anna was strong enough to fight through the addictive nature of these platforms and the mental health impacts it had, I was going to be strong enough as her mother to take those personal journals that she left behind and use them for education and justice for children.
I mean, Lori, amen. I mean, again, you point out you had proof, right? So many parents have nothing, right?
Nothing.
There can be nothing worse. I mean, to have nothing. Let's talk about Los Angeles. You were recently there, back and forth, right? Going, because this lasted, about 7 weeks, I think, total, maybe?
Yes. Was there.
And this was the Meta trial, and Warriors Meta is Facebook and Instagram. And it's also WhatsApp. We don't usually say WhatsApp, but it's WhatsApp as well. It's Mark Zuckerberg. Lori, what did you witness there? Like the testimony, the atmosphere. I mean, I was so concerned. You're sleeping out in the rain, and all these different images I was seeing, and I'm like, God bless these parents, because without them doing all of this, I don't think we would have those 2 verdicts that came in back to back from New Mexico and California. But what do you want to share about that whole experience?
I had been following this case since we filed Annalee's lawsuit. I was the one that was on Pacer Monitor trying to decipher legal documents that I didn't understand, and to find out that I had the ability to just have the courage to go was number one, but to have the courage to join other parents that decided to go, and we wanted to be seen in memory of our children, and to support KGM, who was the plaintiff, was empowering. The court, it was not open up to a video streaming of any of the court case. I mean, the judge was very protective of KGM, the plaintiff. She's a young, innocent little girl, she's 20 now, but she was young and innocent with her story unfolding in the public. And I really respect the judge for doing that. There were limited seats, Lynn. There was about 10 to 15 seats for the public. So on days every day you had to stand there and draw a ticket. And if they drew your name, out of a hat, you were able to gain access into the courts. So it was a hit and miss situation if you got in the court or not. But with the power of all the parents and advocacy groups there, we had a front row seat because we wanted them to see us.
Mm. And I really, it played into the hands of the jury, seeing the parents there. I know it. Okay. I want to, Laura Marquez Garrett pointed out she's got some proof that even Google was hiring people or something to stand in the lines before a lottery to, so parents wouldn't get into the courtroom. I heard there were 12 seats total. That's it, 12 seats. I heard the courtroom was actually much smaller than everybody thought it would be, kind of thing. But you did it. But, Lori, explain to us why this trial, right? And also New Mexico, because they were a day apart, really, the verdicts. Explain to all our warriors out there why this is so important right now. I say it's just the beginning. What do you say about all of this?
No, I say it's more than just the beginning. It is, like I said, we cracked the door open to that courthouse, but we kicked the door open after that verdict was read. And it's so important, in my opinion, Lynn, is because it reinforces everything that we as parents that have lost children, or even parents that are trying to raise children today in this digital world, it gave us a window inside of the operations of these big tech companies and what they knew, how they designed the platforms, how safety was way back in their whole agenda, and everything was built around engagement and profits. And it was so, for me, it was validating to know that losing my daughter had a lot more depth than me just blaming myself. How the impacts of these platforms were designed, how researchers, 18 out of 18, said that these platform design tactics were impacting young children, and they did nothing about it. And I've told everyone, when we sit there and we talk about this, it was so hard, Lynn, to sit there. And when Masario testified about Instagram, and Instagram was a huge negative impact on my daughter, to see that in 2017, 2018, 2019, they knew that these platforms were harming children and they did nothing. They did nothing. And those are the times where Anna was really struggling. It was almost like Lynn losing her all over again. I was in the front row that day and I didn't handle it well. I almost felt like it was an out of the body experience, to go, how could they do this to children? How could they consciously have this information and choose to charge ahead and do nothing? So it was really hard for me. I had to leave that day at break because I was one of the parents that was really having a hard time emotionally.
I think you actually texted that to me.
I think I did. It was
because I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I wish I was there to support them, to just be a shoulder, to be something. Like, what can I offer? I don't know how you could even be in the same room with these people who knowingly do these things. I mean, that goes, Lori, to a whole nother, look, we hear the same thing, profit over people. Well, Lori, I'm tired of hearing that, because I say the real war is there's a war on for our children across America. That's what I say. And this is unacceptable on every single level that there is. And until they really are held responsible, accountable, and that would be massive. I mean, 375 million and 6 million with the two cases. I just have to say, Lori, like, for these tech companies and CEOs, that's a drop in the bucket for them. I'm so concerned, like, okay, we'll pay out a few billion in settlements and all that, because now our focus, and we know they're putting all their investment in AI and have been artificial intelligence, which is, have we learned nothing from all of this, and all of you parents, what social media going unvetted, has done to our kids? And now we're just going to jump into this artificial intelligence into the classrooms and all that. I mean, we'll get into that a little bit, but I know you were just in your state capital in Colorado for a bill signing. Now, you are such a warrior because you really you do it all, Lori. Tell us what this was about in your state.
Well, we had fought for social media reforms. We had some really great legislation that at the ninth hour last year was basically buried because big tech came in and lobbyists came in and changed the narrative of the bill. But this year, that bill went through, and it is basically demands that social media platforms have 72 hours to respond to any police or district attorney or attorney request for information when it has to do with children and drug dealings and anything that has to do with information that we could pull off of these platforms to help solve cases and protect children. So it's a 72-hour window. They've got 8 hours to respond. They have to have an 800 number, to contact. So it's not enough, but it's a start. And as we know, the lobbyists and the lobbyist groups that fight every single social media bill that we try to get passed to protect children, I don't think it can touch anything on this. So for that, I'm thankful that it sends a message. It sends a message.
Yeah, and this is what we need: messages.
Yes.
We need to do this like every day, Lori. Like we can't, one day let things go by. I mean, we've been fighting, I think it's over 4 years now, for the Kids Online Safety Act,
Yes.
Senate version 1748 with duty of care.
Yes.
Any thoughts on that you want to share? Because I am just HE bent on, I'll leave out some letters here, on we are going to get that passed.
Yes.
What do you think about this?
I think the stars are aligning for us, Lynn. How could they not pay attention to basically 2 court cases that said these big tech companies knew they were harming children and did nothing? How can you not err on the side of caution? To me, it's what do elected officials want their legacy to be? Do they want their legacy to be about protecting children and making change? And I believe in the Senate version of COSA. I do not believe in the House version of anything right now, because it's just, I have a whole different view of Washington, D.C., and the fight is so real for us as parents because money is power. Money speaks volumes. Money gets politicians elected. But when it comes to our children and the stories and the proof of what we saw in that courtroom, that's what we're going to do, is take all the disclosed documents that came out in that court, and we're going to go to Washington, D.C., and we're going to stand there and make them face us, look at it, put their stories out in front, and the proof of what these companies did. And then you tell me you can't pass legislation to protect kids online. What side of the law do you want to be on right now?
It's funny, Lori, I was just thinking this morning, maybe timing really is everything for Kids Online Safety Act, Senate version 1748, everybody. I'm brainwashing everybody about Senate version, okay? I mentioned nothing in the House. I just refuse to address any of that. But, maybe with the 2 cases, this empowers us. This strengthens us too. We really can stand on this now. And how could anybody, they work for us in Congress, look away, deny us, deny you, deny all the parents. What would you say? Well, I have a couple of questions. The first one is, in court, they really have no defense other than the playbook for big tech is always attacking parents. Like parents have a responsibility for First Amendment rights or some nonsense they put out there. It's always the same argument. But these were, internal memos, the whistleblowers, right? Doctors. What did they say to all that? I'm very serious. Like, Mark Zuckerberg, I'm surprised he even showed up. Like, what do you have to say? They showed up with Meta glasses on. So brazen, these people, his entourage. Seriously, what is their defense? They don't have one. I'm not a lawyer, but it doesn't seem like, they have one.
It's parents' fault. That was their defense, was it's a parent's fault. How could you argue with emails that had Mark Zuckerberg's signature all over them?
Right.
They were just flashing those up as fast as they could. And the information that was disclosed that day in court for all these weeks was so damning. The only thing they could do is chink it back to it's the parents' fault. And it is true that there were jurors, you could watch the reaction. And I know at times I could see the jurors' faces. You could see the disgust in what, Meta attorneys were saying and Google attorneys were saying. And, they tried to paint the parents as, all parents. She was a single parent. She was trying to raise her daughters. And there were some jurors that had been quoted and overheard as saying, when they were talking about disciplinary actions with KGM and things like that, we've done that with our kids.
Yeah.
So they really tried to attack it, but that was their only thing that they could say. And I will say, Lynn, when you see the depth of it all with these companies, that they would get people to stand in line so parents wouldn't have a seat at the table. I mean, like you mentioned earlier, we slept outside overnight, starting at 11:30 at night, before the next day, in the rain, in the cold, just so we could be in that front row. And, they had people there trying to hold spots in line, and we won that day. We were all lined up in that front row. So it was an empowering feeling. But to me, just to see that they even targeted young children for profit, get them young, they're herd animals. It just, they set goals it was all economic goals to build the company. But I would like any parent today, when we talk about this and the addictive nature of these platforms, to really walk in tonight, try and take that phone out of your child's hand and say, you're going to keep it for 3 hours. And then I think really, when I didn't realize it was such a physical addiction, and what they were showing us in court about how the brain and the development of young children, it is. And they did it by design. But I'm so thankful in a sense that we're having this discussion, Lynn. The world is having this discussion.
Yes.
I've had 9 different countries come here and interview me, an honest story. So it's not just the United States thing. It's around the world, and they hear us, and they were watching us, and they celebrated with us just as much as we did that day. Oh, so to me, that wouldn't have happened 2 years ago. I just think it's such a wake-up call, and parents are really tuning into that and tuning into having tech in schools for younger children. So I think this whole dialogue is coming into something that is really going to move the needle.
Yeah, I agree. And there was such massive, happily, media attention on this, which from all over, and as you pointed out, across the world and all that I think people are visual. Like, for them to hear it, see it, I don't think this even would have happened like a year ago. I feel like it's speeding up. Pendulum is swinging. Mm-hmm. And we're going to start really seeing results, and with things like the Kids Online Safety Act, Senate version 1748. You've given us a couple of things already, Lori, but let us know if a lawmaker, okay, or I don't know, a tech company person is watching right now. What do you want to say directly to them?
We can fix this. Mm-hmm. We really can. There should be no reason that in this world that there isn't a social license to operate for these companies, and that they need to be held accountable like any other industry. And I always feel like, I tell parents today, I said, I feel like right now we are putting our children in cars with faulty seat belts and no brakes. And for the tech companies out there, be part of the solution, because we're not going to back down. We're toe to toe on this. And we don't need children to continue to die. And for that, there's an uprising coming, yes. And we're leading the charge, and we're not going anywhere. If it's my last dying breath,
I'll be alongside you, Lori. I'm alongside you,
and they know, yeah. And I think, the power of parents and the public in demanding change is where we're at right now.
Yes.
And building awareness. So my son said, and you met Cameron, my oldest, he said, Mom, on those days that you're down, you always say you just want to save one child. And I think us as parents have saved many children and built the awareness that these platforms are not safe, and that we all need to be engaged in demanding reform from our elected officials and accountability in the courtrooms. Because, we hear a lot that trial lawyers and things like that. And it was really hard for me to decide to go with the Social Media Victims Law Center, but they're not just attorneys to me. They're our family. They're our friends. They never fail to not lift us up or answer questions or hear our voices. And if that's what it takes, if that's what it took to get that courtroom door open because we could get no action on Capitol Hill, it's a start. And it's going to be part of the story 10 years from now on how we're opening up a new generation to save kids with safe tech and digital literacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And you point something good out, Lori. This happened because of parents and lawyers and also juries, American people, the public. Did not happen because of Congress, right? Happened. So that just tells us the wave is positive in our direction and going. Give us a couple of things for parents. We always want to remind everybody of a couple of tips. Parentsrise.org. We want everybody to go to, participate in, join. I just want to say something to you, Lori. It is about you have saved so many children and educated parents, and even people in the government. And your passion, your heart, it is. Please keep telling yourself, one child at a time, or I've spoken to one parent at a time. That's a warrior. I don't want it's so overwhelming, the big picture, but you're doing it, Lori. So pat yourself on the back once in a while, or I'll just come to Colorado and do it for you.
We're doing it.
I'll do it for you.
There's some amazing parents out there, Lynn, that they're just amazing parents that when we unify together, it's such a powerful force. And if that's where we need to be, that's where we're going to be, arm in arm. And with you helping us and all the advocacy groups, you're a treasure. We need people to prop us up because
thank you.
Telling the worst day of our life over and over and over again, and then tying it now that they knew. Lynn, my husband made such a statement, and it was so true that day when he flew out to the LA verdict, is that he goes, I think I'm madder now in a sense that but if they would have been found not guilty, I wouldn't have been as angry. I'm so angry now because they knew, and our daughter died because of that. And it's hard. That's a hard one. So.
Yeah. You also texted me. You were like, my husband's here today. And I'm like, that's good. That's good. Even though it's tough, and I knew, and you need that support, and you both needed to hear this verdict, which I prayed on it, that it was going to be. But I have to say, Lori, then I was even shocked when it was like, yes, 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 yes. And that told me that those juries, LA, and then also New Mexico the day before, they understand, which means the American public understands. And we're going to intervene now and start a lot of this prevention. Give us a few tips right now for parents, what you want them to be aware of. We touched a little bit. We didn't really talk about it too much I'm very concerned right now about AI.
Yes.
Artificial intelligence being sort of this runaway train. And I did say earlier, have we not learned anything from the history of big tech? They do not care. No matter what they say, or their glossy PR things they put out about safety features, and they do everything in their power to protect. There's no real transparency. Mark Zuckerberg lied in front of Congress, continues to lie. So we have to take this into our own hands to some degree. And so that parent out there, that mom, that maybe she's a single mom, it's hard to do all this stuff and keep up with everything, right? And families are overwhelmed these days. What do you want to say to them? A couple of things they should look out for?
I think they need to keep that line of communication open with their children the best they can. And I think they really need to. It's almost a full-time job, but educate yourself on how these platforms work. Right now, I feel there's a false narrative out there because I'm seeing Meta commercials pose these nice, pretty family type.
Yes.
This is what we're here for as a platform, is just to find a puppy. It's way back home. No, what they were showing my child was death and destruction. And I know they're on a big PR blitz, and I don't want parents to get a false sense of security. Until we get laws in place, until we have real accountability, you keep guarding. You trust but verify. and utilize all those resources you can to educate yourself. And to me, like I always said, I wish we were living in rural Alaska, because my daughter never would have had a phone, but that's not the world we live in. So follow your gut, get all the knowledge you can, and have a lot of love and cherish for children, because it's a whole different world than telling a child to, suck it up or be tough. We can't do that anymore. This is a mental health issue that our children are struggling with. So keep your children away from social media is my advice.
At least just talk to them, put
Yeah.
some restrictions as far as put down the devices, whether it's a half hour, you start with a day. Tell them these harms occur. Parents have said to me, Lori, oh, I don't want to open up a can of worms. And I'm like, they're seeing and hearing everything online anyway that we can't even imagine. So you be that one that says this is happening. I mean, age appropriate, but it's starting, at very young ages. And I'm seeing kids on airplanes, 2, 3 years old with iPads, the parents put in front of them. So it's all over. Listen,
and be an example. Be an example.
Yeah.
This is parents have to put those phones down too. The addictiveness of it, even with parents and us being on phones in front of our children, are some things that I think we need to heed.
Well, that's just it. I mean, we talk about all of this, and we do have to lead by example. And we do have to also, if we say phones out of the bedrooms at night, we can't be scrolling away and letting the kids see us, because none of that will. And also, we have to lift embarrassment, I think, in this country. Kids are going to do things, right? If they exchange nude images, no, we don't like any of that, or engage in dialogue. We don't like any of that. But they have to know they can come to us and not be so embarrassed that, they want to do away with themselves. I mean, this is the most ridiculous. Again, that goes to mental health. So all I can say, Lori, is, thanking you never seems like enough. But for being here, for standing up, for really being at the forefront, for speaking out and carrying Annalee's story forward to warn everybody that you did do, Lori, everything right. It pains me when, you cannot blame yourself. We have to blame these big tech companies and hold them responsible. And we want all of the parents watching, and we have a lot of grandparents raising kids these days. Take this conversation, share it on your platforms, take it forward, talk to your kids, talk to each other. And I truly believe, Lori, the future is it's not something that just happens, it's something we shape. And I think we've learned through all of this, right? The kids have been used, the families have been used as guinea pigs by a handful of big tech companies. And going forward, we've learned, and we're not going to accept this anymore. So when it comes to our children, we're going to act.
And demand more from our elected officials. Ask those hard questions. Ask where they stand on protecting kids online.
Yeah, I agree. And I think since the 2 cases, now it's renewed energy where we can go back and say, you know what? We weren't crazy. Or you know what? We have proof. We know. And I just want to reinforce something. The case in California, everybody was getting wrapped up in blaming, this teen and her mother and the behaviors. This was about a product liability case. It had nothing even to do with that. It was product liability, but they tried to switch the narrative that it was about bad parenting, bad mother, daughter, and all that. Separate it out. This was about product liability. So I think it's excellent. Now we know we've got proof. We can go back to Capitol Hill. We can go back to our state capitals and say, see, look at the jury. And we're going to continue, and we're going to go to parentsrise.org. Lori, thank you so much. Promise me we will speak again soon. We have to keep up the momentum, marching forward. And I'm right there alongside you, Lori.
Lynn's Warriors. Yes, we're part of you. Thanks.
There you go. For Annalee and all the kids out there and parents. Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.